start to fight for your expansion, not your limitations. Because we're so taught to, fight for how we can't do things and why other people can do it and we can't. Or how we can't take that next step because the outcome is too far away. Take the next best step and start fighting for how expansive you are. Because you probably agree, before you were into this work, you had no idea of the full capacity that we have to feel, to have a purpose, to communicate, to connect. You know, our expansion, the ability for us to expand and to step into our full potential, it's there. It's there for every single person.
Hello and welcome to another episode of For Soul's Sake, a conversation in which we bring you candid, honest, real conversations on wellness, spirituality, transformational experiences that our guests have been through that help them to navigate life in a more connected way, a more joyful way, a more learned way. And today we've got an amazing guest, someone that I have been watching from afar, someone that we've actually never met before. This is the first time we're meeting in person, and we met over the amazing internet, Instagram. And over COVID, I was just watching all the stuff that she was doing and very, very much appreciating it. And I very much appreciate everything that she's been on in terms of her life journey. And I think this is going to be a good conversation. Today we've got Sophie Dear. I'm thrilled that you're here. In 2015, Sophie found herself at a crossroads grappling with the overwhelming weight of insomnia and anxiety that forced her to take a step back from her career. Determined to reclaim her health and happiness, Sophie made the bold decision to leave behind her job in the TV industry and embark on a profound personal transformation. Sophie's path led her to the captivating world of yoga, where she not only discovered the immense healing power of meditation and movement, but also recognized the need for deeper introspection. Realizing that becoming a yoga teacher alone would not be the ultimate solution, Sophie set out on a remarkable journey of self-discovery and growth. Through her relentless pursuit of well-being, Sophie became the creator of Move and Inspire, an online platform that serves as a haven for personal growth, offering a wealth of yoga practices and resources. Her infectious energy and unwavering dedication have inspired countless individuals to find purpose, passion, freedom, and balance in their own lives. Sophie's extraordinary story has captivated the attention of prestigious publications such as Bazaar, BBC One, Women's Health, The Telegraph, and Create the Love. Her wisdom and expertise as a yoga teacher and self-worth coach have earned her well-deserved recognition and accolades. Get ready. This is going to be a good one. Sophie, thank you so much for being here. It's a real honor to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for such an amazing introduction. It's like my heart was racing. I was like, that's just, it's so nice to hear all of that, and you speak about me like that, because it's kind of, sometimes I don't, remember that that's all kind of happened in some ways. Like where I am now, it's like where I was, and hearing that from you, it just feels like such an honor.
Well, it's you. It's amazing. I mean, that's interesting that you mentioned that. Why do you think it is that sometimes we struggle to speak about ourselves? I think that there is, or even just hear about ourselves, like there's this, maybe it's a British thing. I would just go, oh, no, that's not me. There's like this humility ping pong thing that goes on in the heart that goes, no, you're better than me. It's like, why do you think that is? Why do you think there is this kind of underlying, for many people, I'm not saying about in this moment, but for many people, they struggle to hear about themselves?
It's such a good question. I don't think that we're taught this growing up. I think it's something that can be kind of shamed. Like, don't be too big, play small, be the good girl. Especially like for me growing up, it was all about being the good girl, and that was like being quiet and being on my best behavior, and really the person I am is quite expansive, quite loud, quite just grabbing at life. And I think often we're put in these positions where as kids where we really are not allowed to be that. Right. And so it becomes unsafe for us to be that person. And so I kind of learned to play small. And so, I think that it becomes such a kind of pattern from childhood, as well as everything we know about, like, oh, it's arrogant to be confident. And now I'm like on purposely with people, I really try to show my confidence, because I think it can be really kind of a bit jarring for people, and they're like, oh, okay, I can see you can be confident without being arrogant, because I also show my vulnerability. I, admit my mistakes and my failures, but being able to hold both, right? Not always just being down on ourselves, because, I mean, I'm going off on a tangent here, but like
cool.
that negative inner talk can really kind of dampen our spirit, and it really dampened my spirit for a long time. So I actually think it's so important to celebrate ourselves and to have this voice of empowerment. And it takes time to get there. Like, I had to really rewire my brain and change my way of thinking, which was to be down on myself, and to not hear something like that, to not receive that, to receive that love that you just kind of gave in that introduction, which is a whole nother thing about how we're taught to give. We're not really taught to receive.
Wow.
We're
taught to give and not to receive. Do you think there's a process for learning how to receive?
Well, for me, massively.
Okay.
I mean, this kind of goes into this idea of like feminine and masculine for me as well. So I think the masculine being that we're kind of controlling and giving and fixing and everything quite external to us. The feminine, which I've only tapped into the last few years, is this sense of receiving, this sense of softening, this sense of trusting, this like more inner world, which for me, that's like such a principle of how I live my life now. It's like we can gain external validation, or we can work internally, validate ourselves with the support of others and community. I don't think it's black and white, but the sense of, building from the internal world to create this fulfillment, to create this happiness, rather than relying on the external to bring us happiness. And I think that is the key to kind of tapping into this receiving, into being in this softer place. And so many of us women, especially like ambitious women who were taught like me to be in their masculine mode, and that's how we create things, is like do. So many of us find it hard to actually receive, which then causes things like people pleasing, all that kind of behavior that can end up being quite corrosive to us.
Incredible. I think what you're speaking is so valuable. And for me, I'm just sitting in a kind of moment going, wow, this is someone that I saw. The first time I saw you was like, it was a BBC, I think it was an advert of some sort, and you were teaching asana. And I remember St. Paul's in the background. Is that right?
Yeah.
And you were teaching asana. And then, like, I just kept watching your content. I was like, this is someone that clearly is living life or living yoga off the mat as well. Because, I mean, just how you speak so eloquently about the masculine and feminine, the desire, the need for solitude and starting with the internal world. You've clearly been on like a hell of a journey, because it can't just be, poses on a mat. There must have been a lot that's gone on. Tell me about kind of that journey for you, because I know you just came back from Bali, for example. So what happened there? Like, you were in London, things were popping, you're on the BBC advert, da-da, and then off to Bali. What happened?
So the Bali journey kind of came out of nowhere. So I was very much living like quite a traditional English life. Like, I'd got married. I was in a place where I was like trying for a baby. I was about to move out into a house like a little bit out of the centre of London. I really thought like my life was on this path, and I was really doing this from a place of trying to control every single aspect, and kind of very suddenly I went through a separation. And this is someone who I had been with for 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. But we'd only been married a year and a half, but I'd been with him since I was like 23,
right.
Like feels like a lifetime. And this sudden separation really got me thinking like, well, what would I do if I ended up on my own? What would I actually really want to do? And I knew I wanted to move abroad. I'd always wanted to have a go at living abroad, but being in a partnership and my family and all the kind of, reasons we use to keep us like in our safety net. Like, we find it hard to step out of that comfort zone. Those had gone on in my mind for years. And then this sudden, I call it like a pattern interrupter, like it was such a big like in my life that I was like, okay, now what am I going to do for me? That is just fully in alignment with what I want to do. And I was like, I'm going to move to Bali.
Wow.
It was originally, I thought of Australia, but then the visa's a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to give Bali a go. I knew it was like this yoga space, this spiritual space, this healing space. And I moved there for 3 months. The idea was like I would figure out whether me and my ex would stay together.
Right.
And I literally packed one bag, 3 months, had my return flight. I arrived, and then 10 days later, borders shut, pandemic. I ended up there for 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Didn't come back. Yeah.
I can't believe 2.5 years have passed since we first, that was the first time I remember. I connected with you just before you moved, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Holy moly, 2.5 years. Okay.
And
what was that? What did that do for you?
I mean, so much. It's funny because you were saying about how, like, you know, the yoga isn't just on the mat. I'm going to be really honest. To begin with, it was like so just to kind of rewind and do a concise, quick version of it, I had suffered from anxiety and insomnia for years before going into yoga teaching. I was an assistant director in TV. I was working on these big shows, these big dramas. I was traveling, like, you know, you think it's like a glamorous world of TV, but it was 90-hour weeks, and I was completely burnt out.
90-hour weeks.
Yeah, and my mental health got pretty bad. Like, it wasn't just manifesting mentally, it was completely manifesting physically as well. So I got signed off work, and again, it was like this another, you know, this pattern interrupter, this like moment of, okay, what am I going to do next? And I knew really what I needed to do was focus on my health and happiness. And for me, yoga just kind of appeared in my life, and I started practicing, and I was terrible, like really, really inflexible, like mind everywhere. I didn't understand this shavasana thing. Like, why are we lying down on the mat for 10 minutes at the end? This is pointless. It's literally what I thought. I was like, this is ridiculous. I thought that yoga was just about stretching, and then I went into it, and it was really, I was going to these really powerful vinyasa classes, you know, power yoga, getting a sweat, and I was like, yeah, I'm getting really fit.
Yeah.
And there's something about yoga, especially if you go to the right teachers, that the underlying magic can just be weaved in without you even realizing. And so I think on a subconscious level, I was starting to go into this world of, as you said, like this introspection and this, this reflection. And so even though I had gone there a little bit before moving to Bali, Bali was like when I went there. Like, I went headfirst into that kind of spiritual journey. And it was a spiritual journey that was very much just, I suppose, like, maybe not super traditional, like, yoga spiritual journey. Like, I've spoken to you about, I started kirtan, and that was beautiful. But I also just started all this self-growth work all around relationships, because I had this feeling that, okay, I have to take responsibility for my part in the relationship in which why it broke down. And it actually felt really empowering to do that. Instead of like blaming myself for all the ways in which I had gone wrong in the last 10 years, it was like, no, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for how I showed up and how I relate, and look at my patterns, because there were a lot. It made sense how I was relating romantically, with friendships, with my family. And when I did that, it was just like light bulb. And it just felt like I was starting to be given some answers that I'd been searching for a really, really long time. And so, yeah, Bali was such a magical place for that. And, you know, during the pandemic, we were pretty free. Like, we were really lucky. A lot of people left Bali, but there was a core kind of group of us. And we had an amazing time. And I know that's like, I know a lot of people,
blessing.
Yeah, was very lucky, because I know a lot of people didn't have that. But for me, yeah, it gave me also a sense of freedom in my life that I'd never had, you know, mentally and also like societally as well. You know,
I think it's incredible because pattern interrupters, I love how you term that. I think that it will happen for everyone. There'll be moments in everyone's life where you have a crossroads where you choose. Like something will, you know, a passing of someone that's loved in your family, a relationship status change, even the inability to perhaps have children. Those are like big things for people's lives. And I mean, changing working circumstances. I think if you're watching right now and maybe you're going through this right now, then I think what's valuable is to just pause with it and see that rather than going, oh God, why are you doing this to me? To just pause and just go, what is this trying to teach me? Is this an opportunity for growth? Is this an opportunity for transformation? Is this an opportunity to find a different loving connection? And I think all too often we're conditioned in one sense to just go, get over it, mate, swipe it under the carpet, just do what you've always done, find another thing that's pretty much the same thing but slightly different. Whether that be a relationship, find the same person that you were already with previously, but just slightly different, like just a few tweaks here and there. I think that this pattern interrupter culture of just going, no, I'll just do more of the same. This isn't a blessing. Like these moments are blessings for us in our lives. And I think only when we look at them with retrospect and we go, oh yeah, like that happened to me, and how my life has changed since then. I think that that's quite important to just be able to go, let me just take some time in solitude. Let me just go internal and just reflect. Okay, what is my life worth now? What do I want my life to grow towards? I think it's important that you kind of like really displayed that and open that out and are living that and owning that and saying that this is how my life changed. An external circumstance caused me to go, okay, let me just switch it up now. And I think that takes a lot of bravery, if I'm honest. Do you have any words of wisdom for someone that is perhaps going through this pattern interrupter moment? Like they've had something colossal happen in their life, and what would be your kind of first steps? Should everyone move to Bali, for example?
Everyone should move to Bali.
Everyone should move to Bali.
Honestly.
All right, come on, guys, let's go.
Let's go. What we have to be careful with is thinking that these journeys are just this kind of shiny, use your pain in order to transform your life. And really, when we get to the nitty-gritty of it, it is painful. These moments that we have to go into are difficult. They are hurtful. It's not that I just went through this divorce, moved to Bali, lived my best life and moved on.
Happily ever after.
Exactly. It's actually about being willing to go to those kind of depths, the depths of the pain and the depths of the hurt.
That sounds dark.
Yeah, it can be.
I don't want to go there. Do I want to be real about how? Yeah, do I want to be real about my pain? Do I want to be real about my trauma?
Yeah, and we can do this tactic of avoiding and deciding to put it under the carpet, and that's definitely something that it's a survival mechanism tactic that we learn as kids. But when we can lean into that discomfort, when we can lean into the pain, when we can see that it's teaching us something and not try to, so my go-to has always been right, I feel painful, what can I do? How can I fix it? Whether it was a quick fix of go and have a drink with a friend, or anything. Go
on holiday.
Go on holiday, exactly. These plaster kind of moments. And actually seeing that, you sitting in the discomfort, holding it without the stories. So that was something that I was taught during my time in Bali, and it's become something that I teach a lot because I think it's so powerful. So how can I sit in the sadness? So I did this as part of my breakup. I decided to schedule in a grief moment. And so I did this
intense.
It was really intense.
Okay.
I did this afternoon because I realized that I'd done a lot of healing already, but I wasn't really sitting with just the feelings without the story. Because I think when you go through a big breakup, something that can play on in your mind is did I say the right thing? If I had done this, would anything be different? And so I was constantly playing these stories in my head, and I was like, how can I actually just feel this raw emotion of just utter sadness for what it is, rather than having to change it or change the outcome,
justify it.
Yeah, anything like that, just sitting with it. And so I sat with the sadness, and I journaled, and I wrote down these headers, and it was I will always love you.
Speaking to yourself?
No, speaking to my ex actually. So it was I'll never forget, I'll always love you, and then I wrote under the headings, but I'll always be grateful for, and I'm sorry. And I just wrote those 4 headings and I free flowed. I wrote for, I think, maybe 3 hours, and I just cried and cried, and I sat with it without, literally like hand on heart, crying and crying, without going into this, Sophie, you messed up, look what you've done. We want to shame ourselves. It's where it's our ego and, again, our survival mechanism. It's like this thing of keeping us small and keeping us safe. And it was such a huge moment for me to realize that these emotions don't have to be negative, they're difficult. And so if we can actually sit in this and hold the capacity, and what I would say to anyone is, like, if you struggle with this, get help. Like, I have so many mentors and therapists and coaches, and because it's been so helpful for my journey to understand how to process this and allow it to move through me.
We're in a culture where that's becoming more and more open. Like, people are accepting that we don't need to go through lives alone. I think that there's this false conception that strength means that you've gone and done it by yourself. Like, this, like, from the bottom, I made it, like I hustled and I did it. And I think there is a value to that. Like, I think the hustle culture, great, wonderful. But I think the value is changing to realize that it takes a village to raise a child. And it takes a community to grow, to transform into this, whoever you want to be. It takes many people. It's not just a journey on your own. And I want to just rewind a little bit to what you spoke about with sitting with pain, because it's interesting. When I take people on retreat, or when even people come for kirtan, people think that when they see it on Instagram, because it's short form, you have to kind of show them the ecstatic moment. But there's a lot of the chanting which is very internal, very holding up a mirror before you. Like, there's this verse that's spoken that talks about how the mirror of the heart, which when you look into a mirror, you expect to see yourself. But because of so many impressions, so many different things that have kind of, impressed upon us the way that we think the world should be, there's a thick layer of dust on that mirror. So when you look in the mirror, you don't see yourself, you see the dust. And what chanting does is it literally invites divinity, whatever that is for you, to come and sweep away the dust. And when you're sweeping a dusty room, all the dust starts to float. And so the experience in chanting, or even on going on spiritual retreats, people think like, oh, it's a retreat, I'm going to have a holiday, I'm just going to sit by the pool. But a lot of the time, you have to face the traumas, you have to face the triggers, you have to face that, okay, am I really living a life that I want to live? Am I currently doing the activities in my life that are going to reach the goal of spiritual happiness? And how much time am I spending on that? And when we are faced with that reality, it can be quite painful. It can be quite painful. And so it's not that I'm saying to everyone, don't come to kirtan because you're going to have to face your SHIT. But, it's going to happen. If you don't face it in spiritual practices, life's going to do it to you. Because it's understood that this world, according to the Vedic tradition, that this world is meant to be a place of learning. It's not a utopia, and the more we try to make it utopia, the more we're just going to learn that it's actually a place of learning. It's a place for us to transform. And so it's incredible, like, how you're describing, that your journey has kind of, and you've been conscious along the way. Do you have a kind of goal for where you want to end up in this lifetime? I know it's a big question, but it seems like my impression of you so far is that you're quite a conscious person through all these pit stops. Do you have an end goal? Like, this is the Sophie Dear I wish to be in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever it is.
I love that question. And the answer is no, which is really not the person I used to be. I had everything planned out. Yeah, I was like, I want my life to be, and it was all about like other people thinking I was doing a great job. Again, all the external validation. And, living up to my peers and being on the same journey as them because I don't want to fall behind, and, being kind of comparing myself and so on. That's
a very 20s, 30s mentality, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Comparing and contrasting. Yeah. Everyone's getting level up on one. At the parties, everyone wants to talk about what they're doing. And if you don't have something to say, you're a failure. Like, what the hell? Like,
100%.
I think everyone has to go through that in one sense.
Yeah, and I think because my life has turned out so differently to what I had planned for, but I am so much happier, I am so much healthier, I'm so much more aligned, I'm so much...
I can feel that, by the way.
Thanks. I'm so much more like comfortable in my own skin, you know? Like my inner dialogue is great. Like it, you know, I have moments where I'll have a little thing, but
That's
I can
natural.
pull myself out quick.
Wow.
Like the way I pull myself out now, it's so quick. I call it like short circuiting that pathway. So I suppose what I'm saying is, the more I kind of trust in the unfolding of life, the more things and opportunities just come my way. So I would say I have a plan until October, and we're now, where are we?
July.
Beginning of July. That is it.
Wow.
I don't have a plan. And it feels so freeing.
That's scary.
Yeah, for a lot of people it is.
Yeah.
But I think when you do this, again, this kind of internal work, for me, it's actually choosing love, not fear. Because even if I put in the diary that I'm going to like do X, Y, Z, it's all future. It's not necessarily going to happen. Like, honestly, I had the names for my babies with my ex. Like,
wow.
I knew I had everything planned out. And so I was so in my head about the future and not living the present moment. And now I get to like genuinely enjoy the present moment, as woo-woo and cheesy as that kind of sounds.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, it's about how I show up energetically every single day. That's what brings me joy. That's what brings me fulfillment. And yeah, I just kind of trust in the unfolding of things. And it really does, like, you know, law of attraction, things come my way. 100%. And I'm like, yeah.
It gives me goosebumps. I mean, what I found interesting about that was it said, like, in the Bhakti scriptures, it talks about the end goal being fully in love with God, having complete faith, complete surrender, complete taking shelter in divinity. And that's like kind of put as the lofty goal. And in one of the like early books, like undergraduate study, one would call it the Bhagavad Gita. It talks about how before we're God conscious, we have to just become conscious. We have to become aware. And that sounds, again, really cheesy, really woo-woo, but what does it mean to be aware? It means to notice, where is my mind, where is my body, where is my heart? You know, where are those three things? And being real about them, honest about them. Something that I've kind of, I'm still developing, let me put it that way. Something I'm developing is this ability to just be open book about all those three things. So when someone asks me, so how was that yesterday night? Then I want to be open book about it. And the reason is because by being open book about it externally, when I speak about things, then my internal narrative also becomes really open book. I'm not having to display me as someone different on the outside and someone different on the inside. And it's not that you have to be completely parallel. I get that. You have to put up, you know, particular, the way you present yourself has to be sometimes different, because otherwise, you know, if everyone knew what was going on inside, people think you're crazy. But I think there has to be a desire for meaning what you say and saying what you mean. That, I think, is the first step for being more conscious, to be a little bit more open book about stuff. Because I think then you're aware, like, okay, yesterday was what it was. Today is what it is. I love that you're kind of living life in a free flow way. It still scares me. I'm a very scheduled person. Kaylee's sitting here and he knows, man, like I know my crews, who's going to what festival. I know what time I'm getting to places. Like, I'm very, very scheduled in that way.
But I think that's important.
Okay.
I think that's, you know, this is something that lights you up. It gives you so much joy. It's part of your purpose.
Right.
I think that's really important. I still, you know, I have like structure in my work, and I'm very committed to all my clients and my group. I have a women's group, but it's more in like a general sense. And I actually think what you said about Bhakti Yoga and the goal, you know, the way you speak about it, I would say, is like with more like, let's say, spiritual language. I think actually everything I'm saying is that.
Thing. Yeah, I'd agree.
It's just about, you know, falling in love with this in order to be the best version of ourselves, in order to give what we can give from a place of wholeness and truth and alignment and honesty. Exactly what you're saying about just like showing up with a more honest way. I love what you said about kind of speaking your truth, open book, because what you will do by doing that is really inspire other people to be like, okay, yeah, I can say I had a bit of a difficult day, rather than being like, everything's fine, let's polish it. Yeah. So I love that.
I mean, it's like that even in kirtan. Like at the beginning, I'll say like I've had a bit of a rough day today. I'm going to still show up. I'm going to give my best in this chanting. But I'm being honest, this is where I'm sitting right now. And I think that people value that. People aren't looking for the polished sage anymore. They're looking for someone that they can see is making progress on the path. And I think progress and like being open about one's progress inspires others to go, you know what? Screw this. I'm also going to make some progress today. I think that peer association is just as powerful as having like the senior, like, mentor figure. Like if we can just be a bit more open, quote unquote, spiritually, which means less materially, more spiritually open with our friends. And this is something I want to encourage everyone to do. Like the next time you're with your friends, instead of talking about to-dos, like I need to do this and do this, and speak about to-bes. Like take the opportunity to go, I wish I was more grateful. Have you ever spoken? Is this kind of conversation that you have with your peers? Is it? Am I being too woo-woo right now?
No, it's something it's actually making me think of is what I encourage the women I work with to do is actually, instead of talking about all the stories that are so mental that go round and round in our heads, like all the ways we justify things, and so on, it's like, how do you feel? And so many people can't even articulate how they feel. Like I was on a call with my group yesterday, and I was saying to one woman, I kept on having to kind of interrupt her. I was like, you're not telling me how you feel. Like, actually, how are you feeling? And we're so disconnected actually to how we're feeling, because we're going in our heads about all the stories and all the reasons and why life is difficult and why there's all these stresses, instead of actually tapping into, I just feel really sad. I feel really disappointed. I feel really gutted, and genuinely connecting with that. And there was this really beautiful, powerful moment where she actually just stopped and she just suddenly went, and it was like in her throat. And, she welled up with tears, because it was like someone was actually asking her, how are you feeling? And when we can connect with that, that is a powerful place for us to create transformation, create change, to actually be connected, on a much deeper level, and tap into, because quite often my next question is, well, what is it that you need? Like, what do you really need? Do you really need to go to this next appointment that, everyone else wants you to go to, but you're too scared to say no to? Whatever it is, whatever these kind of surface level things are. How can we tap into this? And I think that's what yoga has really given me. Less here, way more here. And then asking ourselves what it is that we need. Because when we tap into our needs, then we can live a way more fulfilling life. And we can actually be way more honest with ourselves.
You spoke about like your work with coaching women, and I guess this is a personally fueled question, but I'm really intrigued to hear your perspective. See, like within the circles that I'm currently serving, there are a lot of women, and I want to empower, I want to inspire, I want to encourage. Do you think what would be your tips for men empowering, inspiring, encouraging without this kind of underlying, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, trying to manipulate. Because I think that sometimes when you're trying to inspire, encourage, and uplift women, then there's always going to be the undertone of trying to avoid being narcissistic, avoid being dual motived. And in one sense, I feel safe because I've got a really wonderful, beautiful wife. I've got children that really keep me sheltered. And like, for example, one of the rules I have is I don't hug women. Like, it's not like a religious rule or anything. It's just I don't want to come off as though I'm, I'll still do it out of courtesy if I'm meeting someone for the first time. But if I'm coaching someone, if I'm mentoring someone like in a deep way, I try to avoid it because I don't want to ever come across as though I'm wanting something from that other person, even something simple as that bodily contact. I don't want them to feel like there's something else, some other motive here. So do you have any words of inspiration for me personally, or all men in general, that we could take on to uplift, empower, inspire women without the undertone of trying to manipulate in any way? It's a deep question.
This is a huge question.
Hold on to your seatbelts, people.
Okay, I'm not sure I have I want to say the capacity to fully answer this in its depth and complications that this can bring up. I think it really depends on the woman that is showing up, especially in, let's say, a one-to-one session, and what they're bringing to the table, the trauma they've had, you know, their relationships with men. I think there is so much we could go into with that. What I would say in a more generic sense is, for you, you know, I know you're so aligned with your purpose and what you want to do, and this pure truth of trying to inspire and uplift women. So I think keep doing that without overthinking the, like, you know, am I doing the right thing? Just stay aligned to your boundaries. Like, I think that's great. You have a boundary you don't want to, you know, cross with the touch. And I think that's like great. Then we can all honor each other's boundaries. We don't have to question them. It's like, yeah, I really like that. What I would say is, as a woman, I have a male therapist. I also have a female therapist, but I have a male therapist that I sometimes see. And for me, it's really powerful to hear things from a man's perspective, especially as a woman who, a heterosexual woman. Like, I'm in relationships with men. That's, my past has always been with men. So it's really so fascinating for me to have the male influence in my life. And the male influence that I tend to really relate to, and again, I think this is going to be really personal, is emotional availability and softness. Almost like the man kind of slightly being in their feminine, because I have been in my masculine so much. And so having that softness and that emotional availability has been so helpful for me in understanding the way men's minds work, because we are so different, and what we can provide in relationship to one another is different. And so having that perspective is really great, and I wouldn't try and shape or mold yourself in any other way than just being you, because what you have to offer someone will be, you know, potentially some light bulb, life-changing moments with you just showing up authentically as you are, you know?
Thank you. Yeah. I think as men, and I'm just speaking openly and candidly, I think we just need to be, and this is again very much a generalization, it's not the answer to the full question, it's just my experience of it, being more conscious and aware of one's motives, and again, being open book about it. Like, I tell people that the reason why I don't hug is because I don't want you to feel like I'm going to use you in any way, shape or form. You know, and I know it's a big thing in the Bhakti scene, like the kind of, I think the lines get crossed quite a lot in one sense, and this is maybe controversial to say, but I think sometimes the Bhakti scene can be seen as quite huggy, kissy. And I don't think that's very scriptural, in my opinion. And I think that there is so much manipulation that goes on in the spiritual circles that, maybe I won't fit the part, but I think there's going to be a whole subset of people that will feel attracted to kind of the more, I guess in one sense, black and white version of spirituality that I'm trying to offer. I try not to blur the lines too much. I don't know where I'm going with this, but anyway, interesting point. Men, just be more conscious. Be more conscious of your motivation. Sit with your... I think that the emotional availability needs to be developed in one sense. I think it's growing. I think there's more and more men that are more emotionally available than maybe my father's generation. I think we live in a beautiful generation now. And
celebrated, right? Like, we need to celebrate men who are able to tap into this, because it is something that is more seen as a female quality. And it is, you know, when you look at the statistics for mental health in men, and I mean, I'm going off on a tangent now, but in suicide, you know, there's a lot going on. And I think really celebrating men for being in that space, being able to hold that, that emotional availability and that vulnerability, you know, and it not being seen as a weakness, and it not being seen as something that women won't be attracted to. It's like the number one thing I look for in a man is like that emotional availability.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like, I know that there was a culture of like everyone's together, everyone's one, we're all equal. I agree with that. But I think also it's important to sit differently in one sense. Like on retreats, we try to have women's circles, men's moments as well. And I think that both are powerful. It's important, I think. It's however you identify, even your sexual orientation, I think it's important to spend time in that community. There's a huge uprising of awareness being spread in the LGBTQ plus forums. I think that's amazing. I think it's also important in the hetero communities to also, let's gather as men, as women, however you identify, to spend time in that space, because it helps you to navigate how is that person doing it. Maybe I can take some piece of information from the way that they're living. This has been a flipping epic conversation.
We're going off on all sorts of tangents.
Yeah, free flow.
I love it.
Free flow. Is there anything that you really that's something that's inspiring you right now that you want to get across to people that are listening right now? It can be anything. I've been directing the conversation in some sense, but is there anything that you're kind of like, yeah, I wanted to get this across and I want to get it across now?
I think something that's just really relevant for me right now is this letting go of control of this, and it's kind of what I'm doing, what I talked about, like not really knowing what I'm doing after October. And I live a free life right now. I know I've got the ability to do that. Potentially you don't have the ability to do that if for example you have children.
Yeah.
It's different, but just this this real release of control, I think, can be so powerful, and so hard to do, because we're so taught from such a young age that we can control the external. And one thing that I have learned in this work is that we actually can't control anything external to us, even though we think we can. We cannot control a single thing external to us. The only thing we can do is control how we show up and the energy we bring to things and our reactions. So if we sit with that and we focus on that, then again, I really believe beautiful things come your way, and I see it time and time again. And I know there's a lot of these buzzwords of manifestation and all of these kind of things, but if you sit in it and things start to come your way, you do see the magic of it. And this is what I think is like, tuning into your soul and what helps you feel alive, and spirituality. It's really that is a key piece. So the control, but what makes you feel alive. Like, what is it? And if you don't know yet, go and experiment. Go and do things. Try a kirtan. Try all sorts of things. There's so much. We're so lucky now. There's so much on offer out there, and we're scared to try new things. And that's part of the way we're like wired. We get scared to step out of our comfort zone. But when you start exploring, start like almost seeing the limits of who you are, the boundaries that you've created, and you push beyond them, and you feel that sense. So like kirtan for me, I feel alive. I feel so connected.
Me too.
So do these things. Instead of thinking I want X, Y, Z in the future, do these things now. And then that releases that sense of control. And it, again, just allows things to come from like this beautiful aligned place, A
quote that comes to mind, you spoke so beautifully there. A quote that comes to mind right now for me is, dear brother, dear sister, dear person, don't be afraid to go all the way, because the truth anyway lies beyond it. And more dreams have been killed by the words, what will people think? Those words, what will people think? More dreams have died because of those words than any other words that are strung together in the English language. And I think, take this as an invite. You're probably already listening to this because you love Sophie, or you've been listening to these conversations for a while. But this invite is clear. Take an opportunity, take the moment to seize the joy. Find what is that for you, and don't be afraid. Like if kirtan looks cool to you, do kirtan. If sitting in meditation in silence looks like your joy, go and do it today. Book it in. Like find where it is in London. I'm sure there's many places. Just book it in. Go. You'll be surprised. Don't be afraid to go all the way, because the truth anyway lies beyond it. Should we do some quick fire?
Oh, wow.
Changing a vibe.
Makes me feel a little bit nervous. Quick fire.
Oofed. I mean, it's like my quick fire is like long fire.
Okay, cool. We'll do a bit of long fire.
Yeah. It's like medium fire. I won't call it long fire. It's like anyway. I'm mad at that. Question number 1: what's something you're curious about right now? Something you're a little bit. Question number 1: what's something you're curious about right now?
Something I am curious about.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really tangible thing. It's not so big a picture, but I'm really curious about living in Lisbon.
Ooh.
So I'm going to Lisbon on Thursday. I'm going to be there for a few weeks, and just again, I suppose it's like this freedom and just
You can.
Yeah, I can. I work online. I can give it a go, and so yeah. I'm
Let me know how the
curious about
kirtan
that.
scene is there.
Yeah, I will.
Maybe we'll flip over. Question number 2: what's something you're personally working through at the moment?
Something I'm personally working through. This unknown of, not totally knowing where I'm going to settle in the next couple of years, whether it's the UK, Bali, Lisbon. Like I plan to go back to Bali, and also being single. So I was in a relationship up until a few months ago. So this is a relationship I had after my ex-husband, and now it's like this, really rediscovering myself.
Cool.
Single. What does that mean? I'm 37. It's a lot for women at this age, and I think that also ties into this, like, where am I going to live and what am I going to do? And again, just tapping into less control.
Yeah, just being candid. I'm praying that whatever it is that you're looking for, whoever it is that's out there that's looking for you, finds you.
Thank you.
In short, what's the legacy you wish to leave behind in this world?
Oh, wow.
I mean, how can you do that in short?
In short.
Yeah.
I can do it in short, actually.
Yeah.
Because it's like one of my favourite sayings there's kind of two. Focus on the energy, not the outcome. Focus on the energy you bring to things, not the outcome. And start to fight for your expansion, not your limitations. Because we're so taught to fight for how we can't do things and why other people can do it and we can't, or how we can't take that next step because the outcome is too far away. Take the next best step and start fighting for how expansive you are, because you probably agree, before you were into this work, you had no idea of the full capacity that we have to feel, to have a purpose, to communicate, to connect. Our expansion, the ability for us to expand and to step into our full potential, it's there. It's there for every single person.
Can you repeat one more time? Step into your
full potential. So
your expansion, not your limitation.
Fight for your expansion, not your limitations.
Not your limitations. That's very that's hit a personal chord for me, because when I first started sharing, then a person that, well, in one sense I value their opinion, they said to me, you're not going to make much of an impact in this space because you're not a white-bodied female. The voice isn't, it's not so soft. I had that was the feedback that I got. So they said, find something else. And there was something in my heart that just said, yeah, don't believe that limitation. Fight for that expansion. And so, that's a personal one for me, because I'm seeing something really amazing manifest by God's grace. And if I hadn't been brave to just go, I feel that this is something I really want to pursue and give energy towards, then I don't think I'd be sitting here right now. I'd probably be working a 9 to 5. And that would have been, for me, a tragedy. I would have had to have lived with that for the rest of my life. And so, I think that's really important. Fight for your expansion. Give it your best shot. Be realistic in terms of what's actually happening, the results, and see whether it's worth pursuing. But give it a good 5 years. It's not going to happen in 6 months. If you're lucky, it'll happen. One Instagram reel will pop off, and then you'll just all the opportunities will come. Yeah, but be patient. Plug away, slowly. Thank you. That was really personally, it touched a nerve. Number 4, something you used to deeply value, just don't value anymore.
Just going on society's path. I really thought that was everything. I really thought that, fitting the mold meant I was successful, meant I was worthwhile, you know, like gave me value. And now I see that me being on my own journey, that, and really connecting to what I want, that's my value. That's my, because when you do that, you're way more likely to actually be able to inspire others and help others.
Definitely.
Rather than doing what you think everyone else thinks you should be doing.
Powerful. Amazing. And number 5, last one. If you could create one law that everyone had to follow, what would it be?
One law.
Yeah.
Okay. I would do something like everyone in the world, we have to have like a day of being in a musical. So everything
I was not expecting that. A day of being in a musical?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Because musicals just bring so much joy to me. Like, I love all the classics. I love all the new musicals. And I used to like think when I was a kid, I was like, I just wish we could just communicate in a musical way. So instead of talking, we're all just kind of singing, and we're, you know, it makes me think of like dancing down the street and just, yeah, that's what I would love.
I've done that. Every step is a dance, every word is a song.
Love it.
That's going to be the musical. Sophie Dear presents Every Step is a Dance, Every Word is a Song.
And you're going to direct it.
I've stepped in it now, haven't I?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's try. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I feel like I wasn't expecting this conversation, but it's been really nice to see. Like, I think many guests come on with an agenda. I didn't think you came with an agenda. I think you just really came heart on the table, and I think that's how you're living your life. And yeah, I think we can be friends. That's how I want to live my life. So I think that's really powerful. Thank you for being an example of that, for living life with your heart on the table.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so wonderful.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that. It was powerful for me. I'm moved. Yeah, there's a tear coming from the eye, but I'm definitely feeling this is a powerful conversation that if you just rewind it and listen to it once again, I know that we're in a culture of always listen to things once, but rewind it, listen to it again, feel permission to do so, share this with a friend, tag Sophie Dear and tag a friend in the comments below. See you on the next one. For soul's sake.
For soul's